Looks like we're good to go, Tom.
This meeting is now streaming live on Facebook.
Yep, we're good.
So I'm good to go?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Hello, everybody. My name is Tom DiFiore. I'm an attorney at Bay Area Legal Services. Welcome to our continuing Facebook Live series from our organization. Today, our topic is going to be unemployment claims in the COVID-19 crisis. Just as a preliminary, I am the head of the Housing and Consumer Unit at Bay Area Legal Services. So if you have a problem, not just regarding unemployment, but regarding a housing issue or even a family law issue or any issue, you should call our main number, 1-800-625-2257. And you can get screened for eligibility there, and then in many cases get at least a telephone interview initially to discuss your particular problem, whatever that might be. So we're here to talk about unemployment, and let me just try and get, there we go. So I think what we're going to do, there's a handout that I prepared, which I think is going to be put onto our Facebook page and eventually onto our website. So I'm going to go through that now just as a preliminary to go over some of the issues that you might be seeing with an unemployment case. And there's an opportunity to ask questions and we'll address those as they come up, maybe halfway through and then towards the end. But we'll just pull up the screen if you could, Paul, and then we'll walk through this handout, which is a good way to sort of get an overview of what is going on with unemployment. So yeah, that's good right there. So the first thing about unemployment to realize is, let's just go pre-COVID-19, before there was even a crisis with this, just general unemployment, which is in Florida is called Reemployment Assistance Benefits, RA benefits for short. Essentially, if you lose your job through no fault of your own, either you were terminated and it wasn't for anything you particularly did, or you had to quit a job for other than personal reasons, if it was because your employer did something like was abusive or cut your hours. If there's no fault on your part, then generally you're entitled to unemployment benefits or reemployment assistance benefits, which are supposed to, in theory, hold you over while you're looking for new work. That's why you need to be able and available for work and actively seeking work while you're getting your unemployment. And Florida is actually $275 a week is the maximum you can get for unemployment, which is, I believe, almost one of the lowest in the country in terms of that weekly benefit. But you need to, if you lost your job because of COVID, you definitely need to go apply, and many of you may have already done that, for general reemployment assistance benefits. And you have to get denied that before you can apply for special COVID-19 benefits. So many people may, in fact, get approved for regular benefits. And how do you do that? Well, that floridajobs.org/RA application, best way to do that. If you go to that website, there's an awful lot of information, and I'll keep referring to that. That's fairly well done there, that can describe the entire process and how that works. So be sure to go there if you haven't already applied. Maybe many of you that are calling here probably already have applied. If you are not able or don't have a computer, there are opportunities to fill out a paper application. And you can do that by mailing it to that address there below. If you scroll down a little further, Paul, for me. There we go. And you can print that. You can go at home and follow the directions. And I'm not sure if this is still available at the libraries, but I think most people are able to do it online, but if not, there are options available. If you can pull up to the next slide, next page. All right. So what sort of info do you need to apply? Basic stuff, Social Security number, driver's license, last employer ID, and this is all on the website as well. So let's say you file your application and you're approved. What does that mean in this age of COVID? Well, in the old age, like I told you, the maximum state benefit was $275 a week. It can be less than that depending on how much earnings you have and how much money you basically put into the system. But the maximum is $275, whether you made 30,000 or whether you made 100,000. That's the most you're going to get in normal times. You can scroll down a little bit for a second. Underneath that, however, as it says here, there's a federal program called the CARES Act, under the CARES Act, where you can get an additional $600 a week on top of the $275 through July 31st. And after that, potentially another 13 weeks. So some of you may be receiving that. Some of you are maybe looking to receive that. But that's the big benefit that's available now as opposed to before. So if you're approved benefits, you really don't have to do much else but wait for that to come in. If you're denied benefits, you can scroll up a little bit just so you can see the top part of this page. Yeah, there we go. If you've applied but you haven't gotten a decision, or you've got something on your web page that says ineligible, what do you do? And this is a little strange, but at the beginning of this crisis, the system that was created by the unemployment office, as you know, you might have struggled with it. The people that applied early generally are having more problems. So if for some reason you applied before April 4th and have not gotten a decision, you definitely need to reapply. Probably most of you at this point have done that if that was your situation. If it's after April 4th, then leave your application as is. You're going to get reviewed for that reemployment assistance application first. And if denied, we'll explain that next. So if that regular application is denied, what do you do? Well, you can scroll down just so I can see the bottom of this. My application denied, right? There we go, thanks. If you lost your job or you left your job and it was not related to COVID-19 and you disagree, then you have 20 days to file an appeal of that decision. And then you have a telephone hearing to challenge that. That's the normal type of unemployment case. But if you lost your job or left your job, and we'll go into the categories, and it was related to COVID, then our advice is not to file an appeal and instead go to your account online, which is called Connect, on a regular basis until you see a link in the upper left corner that says apply for PUA benefits, okay? And PUA benefits is called Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Benefits. And these are special benefits that you would normally not get, but because of COVID-19, you may be eligible for them. Many, many more people, I believe, have been approved for regular RA benefits, but not as many for the PUA benefits. So this is something very important to remember. If you were denied, that doesn't mean it's the end of the road. You may also be eligible for what we call PUA, or Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Benefits. And this last section down here, which is talking about go to Florida Jobs CARES Act and look on these links, applying for PUA, PUA claimant guide, and watch the tutorial. Very, very important to go and look at that information. If you think that you've been denied unemployment, but you think it was related to COVID and you haven't yet applied for PUA, very important that you go and look at those and study those and follow what they say, because it's very informative and will help you out quite a bit. Okay, if we can go to the next page. All right, so we mentioned pandemic unemployment assistance. So I'll go over this again because I think it's important to sort of understand and make that distinction between regular unemployment or reemployment assistance, RA, and PUA, which is the Federal Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program. So this is brand new, came in April, I believe March 27th was when the president signed the CARES Act. This was part of the CARES Act. I'm sure you've heard of it, but that's when it came into existence. And what this was meant to do was, if you were laid off, your hours are cut, or you're unable or unavailable to work because of COVID-19, we want to give you the opportunity to get additional unemployment benefits, I guess, so you can keep obviously keep money coming in, pay your rent, pay your bills, and do that, because most people that got laid off or had their hours cut, obviously it wasn't their fault, or their business closed or things like that. So that's the point behind this. And an additional point of this is that normally under unemployment, if you're self-employed, an independent contractor, a freelancer, an Uber driver, a part-time worker that doesn't have a long work history, normally you wouldn't be eligible for any unemployment because those are not what's normally covered. But under the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program, those categories are, in theory anyway, supposed to be able to be eligible for benefits, although there've been I know a lot of issues with that, and people have been sort of not gotten what they wanted or thought they can get. But the law basically is saying that in those categories, and even if you don't have a long work history, where I talked about putting money into the system, you should potentially be eligible for some type of unemployment benefit. So I keep saying, well, related to COVID-19, what does that exactly mean? Well, on the actual application, on the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance application, you're going to get a choice. There's going to be a listing, I believe it's 9 choices on the application, and a chance to explain one of those choices, why you picked that. So you need to explain why you're no longer at work and how it was related to COVID-19. So here are some of the options. And I was saying early on that a lot of these maybe didn't apply in Florida because there was such a low rate of infection early on, or not. There was infection, but it wasn't anything like it's been the last couple of weeks or months or month. So probably a lot more of these may become a lot more relevant as our caseloads increase and as more and more people get diagnosed in our state. So this is actually coming to the forefront, I think, and becoming more relevant rather than less relevant, because the infection rate is not decreasing, it's increasing. So what are these things we're talking about? Well, number one, if you're diagnosed with, you have symptoms of COVID-19, and that's why you left your work. If you have a household member who has it. Number 2 or 3, if you're caring for somebody that has it. Or number 4, you're caring for a child who's out of school due to COVID-19. If these are the reasons you left your job, definitely, even if you're denied regular unemployment, that RA, keep going on that Connect website until you get prompted to apply for PUA or pandemic unemployment and check one of these boxes. Advised to self-quarantine by a doctor. If that's the case, you probably want to get something in writing from that doctor, although you don't have to have that, but it would be good idea to get that when you go to your appointment. You were scheduled to start a job, but you don't have a job and can't contact your employer due to the outbreak. Probably less of that now than early on. Number 7, you became a breadwinner for a household because your head of household has died. Hopefully that does not happen to anybody, but it may be the case. Or 8, you had to quit your job as a direct result of COVID-19. And number 9, they closed their office as a direct result. So need to be a little careful here. So if you're leaving your job because you're afraid of getting infected, but you don't have any symptoms yourself, and you're not in like a risk category and have a letter from your doctor about that, you probably are going to have a much better chance of getting denied unemployment. So just because if your office is open and they have procedures in place, and you just say, well, I don't want to go there because I'm afraid I'm going to get infected, that's probably not enough. You'd have to show that, that you were advised to self-quarantine, or one of these other things came up. So I'm just addressing that because that's a question some people have about that. Well, if I just don't feel like going to work because I'm afraid I'm going to get it, and I don't think there's, it's safe to go to work, that might be a tougher case than some of these other ones listed. Let's see. So again, as I said, I'm repeating myself here, but go to floridajobs.org and definitely read Applying for PUA. Click on those links, PUA Claimant Guide, and watch PUA video tutorial. So a lot of good information at floridajobs.org, and you can dive into that and get more familiar with it. If you can scroll down just one second here to the bottom. am I eligible for additional benefits when my regular RA or regular unemployment claim normally would end? Okay, so this is a program called the Federal Pandemic Emergency Unemployment Compensation Program. And what this basically says is when all these benefits run out, you can get an additional 13 weeks of benefits if you've run out of your regular reemployment assistance or you have a claim that expired after July 1st. So a little tricky there, but basically know that there can be another extension beyond the 13 weeks that are generally, or the 26 weeks, I think, that are generally available under regular unemployment. I don't think that PEUC program yet is in effect, but that's something that's also maybe, an extension on these benefits. Are there any questions at this point? I forgot to say, if you have any, certainly to ask them on the Facebook Live page, and then Paul can pass them on to me. So
We just have one question right now, Tom. Michaela wants to know, can a furloughed person still receive unemployment?
yes, a furloughed person can receive and should apply for unemployment. We'll get down to that in a few minutes. The interesting part about that is if you're furloughed and then you go back to work, like part-time, if you make less than $275 in any 1 week, you actually would ironically get unemployment for that week. You get $275 plus $600 theoretically. If you make $276 when you go back to work, like you've been furloughed and you go back to work and you make $300 in 1 week, for that week you get zero because you're above the maximum benefit. So if you've been furloughed and laid off, yes, you should apply for unemployment. And when you go back to work, just realize for any weeks that you make over 275, you're not going to be eligible. So, but definitely, if you've been told by your employer, look, we're going to send you home. I guess if furloughed, I assume means they're not getting paid. If you're getting paid, that's different, of course. But if you're just going home and not getting any money, and you're not sure when you're going to return, definitely you should apply for unemployment or reemployment assistance. And in that particular case, you probably should be approved for the regular state unemployment, the RA program. Maybe not, but have to wait and see. Okay. All right. So how much is the federal PUC program and how long do they last? Now, getting a bit repetitive here, but it doesn't hurt to repeat ourselves. So under the federal pandemic unemployment compensation program, as we said before, you get an additional $600 per week on top of whatever your weekly state reemployment assistance benefit is. So at a minimum, $600, and then whatever your weekly benefit is. The maximum weekly benefit, like I said, is $275. So the most you should be getting would be $875 per week. If you don't have enough hours in the system, that weekly benefit amount can be as low as $80, $90, depending on your work quarters prior to when you applied. So that amount, that extra $600 from the federal government, it's a federal program, federal money, began on March 29th, and it ends, actually this date is coming up fairly quickly, right? So July 25th is not much more than, 3 weeks away. So you may have been hearing in the news about this HEROES Act and whether or not there's going to be a new stimulus or a new aid package. Undoubtedly, this will be something that will be debated. Are they going to extend this federal $600 a week benefit beyond July 25th? So obviously there's political haggling back and forth about that. But as it stands now, this $600 is going to expire on July 25th. So, so most of the people that are going to be eligible for that probably already are in the system Either they've gotten their money or they're waiting to get a decision. So this federal pandemic unemployment compensation program is payable, like it says here, alongside the state RA program, and also people that are getting pandemic emergency unemployment. That's the extension on the unemployment, and the PUA amount that we talked about. So it gets a little tricky and complicated, but essentially no, the big date is July 25th. From that point after that, unless the law changes, you're not likely to get any more of that $600 a week. Although I think there is an extension of 13 weeks on the regular unemployment potentially. So next, I've not received any benefits. If I do, will I get my benefits back to the date I applied? So we've had people call in and say, I haven't gotten that. I haven't gotten the what we call retroactive award. And our position is you should get benefits back to the date you originally applied. If you properly, claimed your weeks on your Connect account, and we're going to talk about that in a minute, on the unemployment website. So if you applied back in, a month and a half ago, and then you get a decision, and it's 2 months after that, technically you should get that back award and not just get it from the date when you're approved. That hasn't always happened in some of the people we've talked to, but that's my understanding of how it should work. Another big issue we've seen people say is, well, my application on the website, my Connect account, which is what that's called, your Connect account, says it's active or pending. What should I do? And the answer is there, though it may be a long wait, generally means your application is under review and you need to wait for a decision. So what if I've been waiting and waiting and waiting and calling and calling and calling and nobody answers me back? We've had that as well. Who do I get to get this thing moving? That's, a tough question. There's no magic phone call or person to call. I know there was articles in Tampa Bay Times about people that were in this situation that, called their legislator, who potentially got in touch with somebody at the Reemployment Assistance Department of Economic Opportunity and looked into their cases. But there's still lots of issues with claims not getting paid and confusion about claims. You'd have to look at each particular case to see if there's anything else that can be done regarding that. But that's one thing that a lot of people have had, that they're waiting for a decision and they haven't gotten any word. What do I do? And again, if you're waiting for a decision and then you finally get approved, going back to the question on top of this, theoretically, and should be that you get a retroactive amount for back to those weeks when you were approved. Okay. Any other questions, Paul, at this point?
We have one that just came in.
Okay.
Can someone receive the federal pandemic employment compensation after July 25th if they applied later, but was employed during that period before July 25th?
So they were employed before July 25th. Okay, right. Maybe you can repeat that again. That was
Can someone receive the federal pandemic unemployment compensation after July 25th if they applied later, but wasn't unemployed during that period before July 25th?
Probably you could try that, but I would say if you waited and didn't apply until after July 25th, I think it's the date you apply. So you can't basically, if you were lost your job in, let's say, I don't know, May 15th or something, and you waited until July 28th to apply for it, I would say apply and see what happens, but my bet is that that's probably going to be a claim that's going to be denied. Now, there are some claims, people like early on in the first month or so, where literally nobody can get into the system, from like March to I think mid-April or end of April. And if you go to the Florida Jobs website, you'll see that there's a special application you can fill out, a statement that says I tried many, many times to get in and apply. I wasn't able to, and they can backdate your application potentially to the date when you tried to apply back a month. But at this point, I don't think you could say, well, I'm just getting around to applying now for a job that I was separated from, a month or two ago. But it doesn't hurt to apply and see what happens. Okay. Right, maybe the next page. You see our number up there. I gave that to you at the beginning, but that's a number to call. There we go, 625-2257. So the next question here, am I automatically eligible for benefits once I'm approved? So you may get a decision saying you're approved for benefits either under regular unemployment, the RA, reemployment assistance, or under the pandemic unemployment assistance. If it was normally, you wouldn't get approved for state benefits, but because of the reason you left your job or lost your job was because of COVID, that would be, again, the pandemic unemployment assistance. If either one of those things are approved, does that mean I automatically start getting my checks? No. You have to make sure that you go to that Connect system, and I keep using that word Connect. That's the name of the system and the that unemployment gives, where you sign in, you have your name and password, and you have your own individual Connect account. You need to continue to go back into that system on a very regular basis. Like I said before, you may, if you were denied a regular unemployment reemployment assistance claim, you may want to be doing that every few days to see if they prompted you to apply for pandemic unemployment assistance. The other reason you want to go in there is the one that's listed here. So the principle behind this is we're not just going to give this unemployment checks every week unless you can show us that basically you're making an effort to get reemployed. Thus the word reemployment assistance. So it used to be called unemployment compensation, but now it's called reemployment assistance. And the focus there, I guess, is on getting reemployed, and that unemployment is really not a long-term situation. It's just to hold you over while you're looking for a job. So how does that tie in? So every 2 weeks, you're going to have to go in to request benefits. So you may get an initial check without doing that, but double check. But every 2 weeks, at a minimum, you need to go in and request your benefits to get paid again. And how do you do that? Well, you complete and answer some questions, you submit your request for payment, and even if your claim's pending for review, like we talked about, if there's not a decision, you still need to go in and request your benefits at least every 2 weeks. I would check it every week just to make sure you're not missing anything, and do whatever is told there. So this says beginning May 9th, you won't receive a payment on your claim unless you have requested benefits. So just be very on top of your Connect system. Go in there regular basis, at least once a week, and make sure there's nothing you need to do. As it says here, you'll be able to request your benefit payment for each week that it's available. And you'll also be have to answer some questions for each applicable week. Again, I'm going to refer you to floridajobs.org and go to the link, which is called Guide for Reemployment Assistance Claiming Weeks. Very detailed information about how to do that correctly. If you don't do it correctly, you may be denied benefits for that particular week because you didn't answer the questions, you didn't report in, and you may not get a check. So even if you're approved for benefits and you think everything's cool, you still need to go in there on a regular basis and do what they're asking. Is there another question, Paul? Or?
No new questions right now.
Oh, all right. So let's scroll down to the next one. So, and this is actually the last question on my form here. What do I need to certify when I'm claiming weeks? Okay. So what are these questions they're going to ask? And again, this goes back to what I talked about earlier. The theory behind reemployment assistance is we're holding you over temporarily. If you're offered work and you get a job offer and you're and you're able to work, you need to accept that offer. Um, so we want to know, are you able and available for work? If you're not able and available for work and you say, no, I'm not this week, then you won't get unemployment for that week or reemployment assistance for that week. So what would make you not able and available for work? If you were sick, if you had a disability or something like that. I guess that's a good question. If you're laid up with COVID-19, are you able and available for work? I don't think I've seen that issue before, but arguably, maybe you won't be, but I think that requirement might have been waived by the governor. I'm not positive whether it's been reinstated, but no. But basically go through and follow through and answer your questions. And then the other thing is you definitely need to report any work you did in a particular week and how much you earned. So I touched on this earlier. So you're getting your maximum benefit, $875 a week. You get a job offer to come back to your former employer or another employer, and they offer you part-time work. Say, hey, we can't kick you back full-time, we can take you back part-time. If you go back to work and you make more than $275 in any 1 week, then you'll likely not be eligible for benefits for that particular week, including the $600 benefit. So it sort of may be a disincentive to go back to work and make $200 1 week. And instead of taking home $875, you're only going to take home $200. So it's a bit of a disincentive there, but that's the way it's been set up. If you make less, I'm sorry, if you make more than $275 in a week, that'll happen, not less. So, but if you're going to make less than $275 in a week, then you basically report, well, I worked this week, I made $150. Then your state RA benefit will be reduced. That's the $275 a week, but you'll still get the $600 federal benefit. So when dipping your toe back in the water and going back to work, you need to think about how that's going to affect your reemployment assistance if you're getting that maximum amount, which in a lot of cases, in some cases, maybe more than you were even making before. So, something to keep in mind. But another thing you need to keep in mind is if your former employer says, okay, we want you back, we've got your job available, we've got full-time work for you, come on back to work, and you refuse that work, that could be a potential issue. If you refused suitable work, then and you received unemployment for the week where you were offered a job but chose not to take it, that could be a problem later. And I didn't really get into overpayments, but if you received any amount of unemployment or reemployment assistance, and it's later found that you weren't not eligible for that, they can try and recoup that money. That's called an overpayment. And there's different things they can do. They can send you collection letters or, potentially, I think, look at tax returns and things like that. So just be wary and be very sure that you're complying with all the requirements. Most of the things that you sign say, I'm verifying that this is correct, I'm telling the truth, there's no fraud involved, so forth and so on. So some people, the large majority obviously are just doing the best they can. Some people may be engaging in that activity, so that's something to be wary about. So that's most of the a lot of information that we provided. As I said, this particular handout will be available on Bay Area's Facebook page, and I think eventually it should be on our website, www.bals.org. That is most of what I have in terms of information about unemployment. I know that early on, many people were extremely frustrated. We talked to people in that situation. I can understand the frustration. Your rent is due, your electricity bill is due, and you're otherwise eligible for money and you haven't gotten it. Hopefully that there's more people that are getting through to the system and getting it now than there were. I know there's not a lot of people that haven't. We'll have to see, the particulars of anybody's case to see if there's anything that can be done to look into that. So that's the gist of my presentation. I don't know if there's any other questions or issues. I've pretty much talked myself out here. Anything?
There was one additional question that came in, Tom. If a person worked 2 jobs and lost the first job due to the closure because of COVID-19, and the second job took people off, or that person off due to FMLA because of COVID, is that person still eligible for the PEUC?
Yeah, it definitely should apply. So the first one likely, and then they try to go back to work, and it says FMLA, Family Medical Leave Act.
Correct, for the second job.
Yeah, I mean, it was related to COVID.
Oh, yep, according to the question, yeah.
Yeah. So again, that may be one where they may get a denial on their regular state reemployment assistance claim and may get discouraged and say, oh, well, they denied me. But again, you have to be persistent and wait for that ability after that's denied to apply for pandemic unemployment assistance, because this sure sounds like it would probably be a pandemic unemployment assistance related to COVID as opposed to a traditional unemployment case. So apply, and if there's a denial, again, I would wait for that pandemic unemployment assistance prompt to apply for that particular program. Okay.
Yep. And they were just giving some additional details for the person in question, had a special needs son. So I guess that was
So, I mean, generally speaking, and again, we're not giving legal advice at the moment. Certainly this person should call our main number and, get an appointment and get more details. But generally speaking, let's say there was no that doesn't sound like it's related to COVID-19. So if you leave a job for, for personal reasons to take care of, an ill father or an ill son, or your own illness, generally speaking, that's considered a personal leave, and you could be denied unemployment. Now, if the Family Medical Leave Act comes in, then it gets a little more complicated. If you're entitled to, family medical leave, then arguably, that is an argument to make that you should still get the unemployment. So a little complicated fact pattern there, but I would suggest that anybody in that situation call our office. So, okay. Absent any other questions, I don't really have anything additional to add. So thanks for joining us, and I hope that information was helpful, and best to everyone.
Thanks, Tom.
Okay, you're welcome.